This day in sports history. It was a cool, crisp Wednesday morning with a ground fog rolling into the east of Van Horn, Texas. The Hogans, Ben and his wife Valerie, had stopped the night before at the El Capitan Hotel. They needed a place to stay on their long journey home, sure, but the El Capitan was a reminder of when times were good but the bank account was mostly empty. Golfers traveled from event to event by car back then, oftentimes caravanning with other golfers and their wives. The El Capitan had been a stop on several occasions years before, when the Hogans traveled just about everywhere with Byron and Louise Nelson. By this point, Byron had retired from competitive golf to his ranch, and Ben was not ready to retire from golf just yet, but he was thinking about slowing down a bit. The 36-year-old Hogan was coming off an impressive swing on the West Coast, playing in 4 events and winning 2 of those, Bing Crosby's Pro-Am and the Long Beach Open. Most recently, he had finished second, losing in a playoff to Jimmy DeMeritt at the Phoenix Open. Hogan was planning on taking some time off to prepare for the Masters coming up in April. He had that luxury now. He'd broken through a few years prior with wins in North Carolina, and since then had used his precise mechanics of a swing that he dug out of the dry Texas dirt into more wins and more checks. The Hogans were traveling alone, and they had 600 miles left in their journey back to their home in Fort Worth, Texas. Just a few days earlier, Hogan had said to DeMeritt that the travel was taking a toll on him, and he wanted to die an old man instead of a young one. So a vision of getting back home and recharging his competitive battery gave him a rare smile on this morning. From the other direction, Greyhound bus number 548, nearly full with 34 passengers, was heading west with El Paso as the next stop. But the bus was behind schedule, and the driver, a substitute on this day and wanting to make a good impression on the route boss, was anxious to make up for his lost time. Weather had been an issue since he started. In addition, a tractor-trailer had been impeding his progress for several miles, and he needed to get a move on. Visibility at 8:29 that morning was poor. Fog reduced visibility to less than 1/8 of a mile up the road. In addition, there was a thin layer of ice, making the asphalt a little slick. Now 45 minutes into their trip, Hogan slowed his car well below the speed limit as he started to cross a bridge with a dry gully below. As Ben's new Bulova watch ticked over to 8:30, Greyhound bus number 548 pulled into the left lane to finally pass the slow-moving tractor-trailer, and he gunned the engine as he began to cross the bridge. It was now set on a collision course with Hogan's Cadillac. Ben and Valerie saw the headlights, but with guardrails on either side of the 2-lane bridge, there wasn't much Ben could do. He swerved the car right, putting the car against the guardrail, and just before impact, Hogan dove to the right in front of Valerie, protecting her as much as possible. And that move also saved his life. 1940s automobiles had straight metal steering columns, and at impact, it was sent straight back, impaling the driver's seat. It did strike his left shoulder, fracturing his collarbone. The engine came crashing back on impact as well, and it crushed his left ankle, mangling his leg in the process. The dashboard cracked his ribs. He also suffered a broken back. As the screeching tires and the sounds of crunching metal ended, Hogan was unconscious in Valerie's lap. She had scratches from flying glass, but was mostly unhurt. She looked at her husband and thought he was dead. Stunned passengers began disembarking the bus. None had been seriously injured. Several came to assist, and after an hour of careful work, they were able to extract Hogan and Valerie from the crumpled car and put him in the back seat of another. It took an additional 30 minutes before an ambulance showed up. On the ambulance ride to the hospital in El Paso, Hogan was in shock and a bit delirious as he gripped an imaginary golf club and he kept saying, "4 left," as if he had hooked his imaginary shot. Ben had always struggled with that hook. An overexcited witness to the accident had made it back to Van Horn, spreading the news that the golfer, Ben Hogan, had died in a car accident. The story got picked up by the wire services and reported on the radio. Demaret and Sam Snead heard that news at a golf course in Tucson. Byron Nelson got that news at his home in Fort Worth. It would be several hours before they knew the truth, that Hogan had survived. Hogan improved greatly over the next 2 days, going from critical to good condition, with Valerie never leaving his bedside. But on February 18th, still convalescing at the El Paso hospital, Hogan developed blood clots that threatened his life again. Blood thinners did not help, and it was determined he needed surgery. But the only vascular surgeon with the expertise needed to perform that operation was in New Orleans. Requests were made, strings were pulled, and a B-29 bomber was dispatched to bring the vascular surgeon to El Paso. In a 2-hour surgery, the vein that delivers blood from the lower extremities to the heart was tied off. Hogan's life was saved, but he would forever have chronic leg pain, making walking on a golf course a painful experience. He was not able to play a full 18-hole round for 10 months, but he returned to competitive golf on the California swing that he had had so much success with the previous year in January. He played the Los Angeles Open at Riviera Country Club. Amazingly, Hogan played so well he had the clubhouse lead until Sam Snead stormed home with a few birdies to equal Hogan's 4-round total of 4 under par. Snead won a weather-delayed 18-hole playoff to spoil the Cinderella comeback. Hogan would go on to win 11 times after his accident, playing a reduced schedule for the rest of his career. And of course, 3 of those 11 wins would come in the amazing year of 1953, when Hogan won the Masters, the British Open in his only appearance, and the U.S. Open. A golfer would not win 3 majors in the same year again until Tiger Woods in 2000. This has been an original Thrive Suite production.